I'd like you to interpret a rather amusing shadow dream of a 13-year-old boy.
I dreamt I was a huge eagle, and I was flying over the town, and I saw my friend Chris and Mike. They were walking to school. So I swooped down, and I shit right on top of Chris's head, and he had to go home to wash his hair. And then I was sitting on top of his roof, and he was going back to school at lunch. And so I swooped down, and I shit right on top of his head again, and he went crying inside. And I thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever done.
In this dream we see again Gilgamesh and Enkidu, so to speak, in another variation. The two boys are friends, but they are also as contrasts. The friend onto whom he shits is more of an extrovert boy who likes collective sports and wants to go out. And the dreamer himself prefers individual plays and seems to be a more reflective character. And in the dream, it begins that he flies, he is an eagle and is flying. An eagle, in general, is, in heraldics, the eagle is always the animal of kings and leaders. And because one thought that, like the lion is the king of the wild animals, the eagle is the king of the birds. So he has something to do with the power drive, but also with spiritual elation, with high flights in thought and fantasy. It looks as if the dreamer has more fantasy, much more fantasy, capacities of fantasy than his extrovert friend. Now, all introvert individualists secretly envy the extrovert because the extrovert is more successful collectively, and generally introverts have a certain feeling of inferiority towards extroverts. Extroverts have them too towards the other, but they never admit it. But the introverts generally admit that they envy the worldly successful friend. And therefore, in the dream, the balance is restored, that our dreamer as an eagle succeeds in shitting on his friend's head, and by that humiliating him. He has to go and get Mama's help, and he has naturally an elated feeling of triumph. One could look at the dream a bit suspiciously and say there's also a little warning in it that he shouldn't elevate himself too much above the friend, but I think it rather means a compensation, that he feels a bit uncertain or inferior towards his friend, and therefore the dream shows him the possibility, look here, you are the real eagle, you can shit on his head, so it's no problem.
Then I go to sleep. I'm in my narrow bed in a room of my own, very narrow, very like the room of someone who's left a marriage, that kind of room. And suddenly I wake, and sitting beside the bed in a little tiny chair is a little tiny boy of about 2 years old with pink and white skin. He looks like a little rose petal. He's so exquisite. I lean down to look at him. He's got a little bag of pink and white candies, just the same color he is. And I think he's a sweet baby. He's not disturbing me. He can stay there. So I go on with whatever it was I was doing, and then I turn to look at him again, and he's turned into an older child, a girl, dark instead of blonde, naked, who's eating something with bloody hands. And I noticed that her vagina seems to be split open and filled with blood. And I think, oh, how horrible. She's mutilated herself, or has she been violated? And I feel just overwhelming sorrow. And then I realize that she is the child of the dark woman intruder.
Then she comes again back to the upstairs bedroom, and the bedroom is very bare and is a cramped hotel room, quite in contrast to her actual bedroom, which is comfortable and wide with armchairs and bookshelves. So it represents her private life, her intimate life. And the dream tells her, look here, there is not enough space, and we know now that space and time are the same thing. Therefore, I would say there's not enough space-time for your private life. This is a woman who probably lives much too extrovertedly her professional life and her social life, and she doesn't take enough room and space and time to be with herself. And so that her psychological bedroom is a cramped hotel room. And the hotel room is also something where strangers live and where strangers can walk in and out. She has no real privacy. She has not a realm of introversion where she can be herself, where she can have her personal secrets. It's all spent away to other people. And part of her femininity, which should look after an inner child, is acting as a waitress to other people.
The unlived part of this dreamer's life becomes obvious in the next dream. Her friend Sue raises mischief because she's neglected and bored. She dreamt that she lived with her friend Sue.
I had this dream about my friend Sue. And then they started having this party. And there was people dancing, and I was dancing with it was a woman, but she was weightless, and I had to keep holding on to her. So the laundry must have been finished because I left, and I went back to the apartment. But as I was walking towards the apartment, all the apartments were on this balcony, sort of, and you walked along this whole outside railing. And then you opened your own apartment, or went right into it. We were about 12 floors up, and hanging on the railing just outside my own apartment was my brother. And he'd been tied up, and he was unconscious, and he'd been tied up for quite a while. And it was a trick to untie him without letting him fall. So I went back into the apartment, got scissors and stuff, and started untying him really carefully. And while I did so, I pulled him off the railing and off the balcony and dragged him into my apartment, put blankets all over him, and knew he was going to be all right.
Cleaning and washing is mostly a woman's connection with the earth, with the body, with the material world. It's an expression of love towards matter, devotion to the principle of matter, and all that in her flying condition, psychologically and outwardly, she cannot do. If the dreamer could live the Susie side of her personality, there wouldn't be such a difficulty. But because she cannot live the side which likes to be doing the household, which quietly lives introvertedly daydreaming while washing up. Washing up is a marvelous creative recreation where one can hang on one's own fantasies and thought, or a woman can think over her dreams and such things. And all that she cannot do. And so Susie is cantankerous and makes mischief and all sorts of trouble. And in the end, we'll see that she even hangs the brother of the dreamer. Then the dreamer goes to do laundry, but she doesn't do it in her own house. She goes to some friends further away in town and washes the dirty linen there.
And what's the significance of her doing her laundry?
Washing dirty linen is to sort out all the little shadow things one has done.